I'm Jim Fong. I'm the director for the Job Capital and the Road Workforce Partnership. We serve the Jackson, Josephine County area, so we're here focusing on that spreadsheet or table that your business plan folks handed out. We're one column in the multi-pronged column of the different initiatives or priorities to grow Oregon's economy. Our focus is on education, reform, and workforce readiness. So you see on your agenda the list of the panel members we have here today. What we're wanting them to do is talk a little bit about what's happening with Oregon's education reform efforts, and also what is happening with the workforce readiness, the workforce system reform. Go ahead and do the slide. So I'm going to start with you, Scott, and ask some questions. Can you, and then we'll go to Todd and Kirk as well. Tell us who you are briefly, and then tell us about what's going on with education reform.
Okay, my name is Scott Perry. I'm the superintendent of Southern Oregon Education Service District. We serve all the schools in Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath County in a variety of ways. In terms of Oregon's school reform effort, if we can look at that first slide there, there's a recognition of a need for school reform, and Governor Kitzhafer coming in, there's been significant activity, if you will, around this issue. Recognition our current generation of young adults, ages 25 to 34, less educated than their parents' generation. This is the first time in decades and decades that this has been the case. It's a major concern, and almost a third of our students are failing to graduate with a regular diploma. And at the same time, our school districts have experienced, and you've read about it in the papers, I'm sure, several years, a number of years now, of significant financial distress. We've had a lot of school years that have been shortened, class sizes that have increased. At the same time, the standards and the expectations for education have been increasing as there's been a recognition of our need to compete globally. And so a great deal of tension as the expectations increase and the funding diminishes. And as it's been spoken to before, PERS rate increases, healthcare increases, other kinds of things that schools are dealing with. So when Governor Kitzhafer came in, if we can look at the next slide, very aggressively looking at what can we do as a state to address the challenges that we have in education. One of the things that he did is looking at the different silos, educational silos. We've got early learning folks, we've got K-12 education, we've got higher education, and the recognition that sometimes those groups are not working together and the arrows of energy are not being aligned. So one thing that the governor did is hire a chief education officer, Dr. Rudy Crew, who has responsibility for the whole, essentially birth through a university system, thinking that can help collapse some of those barriers and get people working effectively together. Governor also set a goal you may have heard it as 40-40-20. We prefer to talk about it as by the year 2025, 100% of Oregonians would earn a high school diploma, 40% would earn a post-secondary credential, and then 40% would obtain a bachelor's degree or higher. Just to give you an idea of where we currently are, currently adults ages 25 through 55 in Oregon, 29% have a 4-year degree, 27% have a 2-year degree, 33% have a high school diploma, and 10.9% have no diploma at all. So that 100% having at least a high school diploma, and then the 40 and the 40 is a very significant goal that is going to be really a stretch for us to reach. One of the elements that the governor's also required is the completion of achievement compacts. Every school district has to have an achievement compact that they submit every year. The idea of achievement compact is if the 140-40 is the target in 2025, then how far do we need to get on key indicators as a school district next year, the following year, the following year? And school districts would submit this compact and then eventually funding would be tied to district progress relative to those compacts. Education service districts also are to develop achievement compacts, and there's a lot of discussion about the notion of a regional achievement compact, which I'm excited about, which would tie in things like workforce investment, the Job Council, other entities in addition to schools, identifying what is our goal as a region and how are we going to reach that goal.
So I guess Kirk and Todd, you're the secondary education director at Medford High School. Todd, Kirk, you're the vice president of educational instruction at RCC. How are you seeing the achievement compacts rolling out as this is coming to fruition?
Right. So part of the achievement compact was to look at some of the goals that the governor put out in terms of getting all of our students not only matriculated through K-12 education system, but also workforce ready. And some of those standards are very clear. Some of them are based in research in our indicators. For example, the rate of attendance for sixth graders is part of that. And there's some data that would suggest that if sixth graders are attending school on a regular basis, that they might go all the way through high school. And so part of that process as public education will take some of those standards and put them into goals and then put them into strategies and plans. How would you accomplish those? Keeping in mind that I think for the last 8 years that I've been working as a director capacity in Medford Schools, we've always worked to make a cut the next year. And we're probably running with some of the shortest school years in the nation and the shortest school days in the nation. And yet the standards keep increasing, which they should. We want all kids to be successful and be ready for those next steps. But I think the achievement compacts, the idea there is that we would actually put forward those plans to really assure that all kids would make it across the finish line. And so part of that, we broke ours for Medford Schools down into 3 areas. We have academics for kids, and then we have what we'd be doing for the staff to make sure that they're prepared and well trained for those next steps for helping students be successful. But then also the third one is community. And what are our community relationships? And we're digging into our numbers, which are sometimes complicated, but we know that if we get a child in first grade that stays with us all the way through their senior year, we have a 90+% matriculation rate. That's regardless of socioeconomic status, ethnicity, special education, any of that. It's about 93%. So if we get them in first grade and they stay with us all the way through, we have a very high success rate. Just the numbers that Scott just shared, it's way better than those. But if there's a break in there, just one time, where a student goes someplace else and comes back to us, that number drops to well below 50%. And so we've started to look at this thing, okay, so we're working really hard in our classrooms with less time, less resources. We're doing really well with the kids that we have. But what happens when things are unstable at home? And what do we have control over? And now that we know some of that, which is a scary statistic, what could we do then to partner in helping those families out? So the compacts have sort of raised those kinds of questions for us. It isn't necessarily just what's happening in the classroom, it's what's happening outside the classroom, which is kind of what this dialogue is all about.
Well, just before you go, Kirk, I'm recalling the last couple of Oregon Business Plan sessions, and the conversations that have come up out of that was really, this is a reframing, this is a transformational moment. There's national recognition that Oregon is at the forefront of this education reform effort. I think the person last year said, all eyes are on Oregon, so I'm wondering what's going to happen with us. Because this is setting a bar, the achievement compact sets a bar, but it's also saying you can't keep doing business the same way because you don't have the money. Something's got to change. So speak to that, if you could, a little bit. What do you see happening? What's the change going to need to start looking like? How do you do this and still keep your budget and maintain any kind of capacity?
Sure. I think the fundamental change for community colleges is we went from an open access game, very proud of and involved in the idea that we're the last great all-comers game. You can come, you can play, you're in the game, you can try what you want to try, you can explore, you can enjoy. Come on in, we'll make it work. And we're really, with the compact and the reform agenda, shifting to a much more focused completion agenda rather than an access agenda. And philosophically, that's very different for us. It's a real change in structure. Because what we're looking at now is not only getting students in the door, how do we keep them there once we get them in the door? And then how do we get them quickly from in developmental ed or reading at the 8th grade level and out into the workforce as successful employees in our community? And so it's a shortening as well.
And part of the legislative change that came from the legislative action was your funding pattern. You're getting funded not for seat time anymore, but for these achievements, these milestones. How does that impact you? Or how is it going to impact? It's going to start this September, right?
Yeah, it is going to start in September. I think the challenge for us is looking for ways to make sure that we keep a balance of responsibility for funding education. In the last 6 or 7 years, our funding has gone from about 60% from the state to about 25% from the state. And yet, like any of the other educational institutions, our expenses are increasing. Our world, that translates into tuition changes. If we are about getting larger numbers and more efficiently into the system, we have to be extremely conscious of that price point. If we start pricing ourselves into a place where students cannot afford to attend, then we simply have a problem in being able to generate the kind of economic engine that we feel like we can be in the Valley.
And just before we get over to the workforce part of it, it seems significant on the cards that Duncan mentioned that are on the tables. The 3 priorities: fix PERS, invest in quality education. Those are the big first 2. This is the side that's about investing in quality education. So so much of this is contingent, is it not, on the fixing PERS is a key part of this. If PERS doesn't get fixed, what's that look like for your all's budgets and our capacity and being able to achieve these outcomes, these long outcomes?
Well, I know in the next biennium, our Chief Financial Officer, Brad Earl, is back there in the back of the room there. He has let us know that it's about $3 million to the Medford School District's budget.
Which translates into
how
many teachers?
Well, that's probably like 27, 24 teachers, something like that. I mean, it's a number of staff. So we would, that has a direct impact on our class sizes, right? And we all, our teachers are amazing. We hire really well. We're really good at hiring excellent teachers. They do an amazing job. But the difference of having 25 children in a classroom and 35 is significant. And a lot of our physical spaces aren't designed for 35 kids in a classroom. And so there's only so much you can do with what you've got. And after, there's a point of no return there, right? Diminishing returns in terms of business trips. So we have that going on. The last bullet on the card is about building the bridges too. And I would say part of that compact is that all of our high school kids would graduate with a number of college credits in the bag already. So part of that is partnering with the community college, with Southern Oregon University, to find ways that our kids can walk out of high school with some of those college credits already under their belt. The disconnect probably is that right now it's sort of like, well, if a student takes an AP class, an advanced placement class, and takes the test and gets a college credit, it doesn't necessarily translate to what degree they want to get to either. So part of that next step for us is kind of coordinating those bits and pieces that a class that a kid's taking in high school would then translate to maybe an actual degree later on down the road. But that's part of that bridge building too.
I like the double entendre because on the bridge they're talking about there on the card is actually the I-5 bridge over the Columbia River. this is a bridge between your matters us as well.
I'm all about metaphors.
Nikki, I'm going to turn to you. Let's talk a little bit about the workforce together quickly. Could you give us a brief update? You're the chair of the workforce board. You're the owner and president of your own company, Express Personnel. You staff and have a lot of employees that you staff at local companies. What's happening with the workforce performance?
Well, there's a lot happening, and the good news for us locally is that when the Oregon Workforce Board helped to create the framework for their statewide plan, our local strategic plan was pretty well aligned with what their goals were. So we didn't have to recreate everything that we had already made some strides in. So that was good news for us. And just for those of you that don't know what the local workforce board is, it's a group of people that we bring together that is it includes private sector employers, economic development, education, and public sector providers. And our role and our goal is to work with education and with economic development to really identify what our workforce needs so we can best serve the employers in our community. And with the statewide plan, we had to drill down to some key areas, one of which is our sector strategies. Just as the state had to identify some 3 key areas that they can concentrate on, we can't work in every sector of our local area at the same time. So we had to identify those that are high demand, high skilled, high wage positions. And so currently those sectors that we're working in are healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and e-commerce and information technology. And the e-commerce sector certainly has been very large in our community for a long time. And as Wayne from J&P Cycles was sharing, some of that consortium work, maybe you'll be able to work out some of your transportation things and bring all those people together. But part of what the role for our board is to be the conduit of communication between the education system and business, and be able to bring those people together so our educators know what it is that business needs. And that is not an easy task, to be able to bring that group together on a regular basis to identify, especially those skills gaps when we're talking about. And what's interesting is that skills gaps for a lot of people, they seem to think that people, with technology and how quickly it's changing and what that means is that it's outpacing the skills of our workers. And when we have jobs that are eliminated and the technology piece in those jobs was really low, there were more manual labor type positions, and then those jobs are replaced by positions that are of a greater technological arena, they really do lack the skills. So we're not just talking about our emerging workforce that's coming out of school and what kind of skills they need. We're talking about our transitioning workforce who has to make a change in their careers. And there's a lot of skills gaps in those areas as well.
And we've heard regularly from employers the skills gap range from everything from technology-based occupation skills to the basic work ethics, pass a drug screening, basic reading, writing, and math. That's where the National Career Readiness Certificate piece fits in?
Correct, yeah. One of the things that the state said is that we want to be able to create work-ready communities, and one of the things that they define with that work-ready community is to get that National Career Readiness Certificate out there, get people certified, have them take that test. Just before we convened today, I asked for some numbers from our local Job Council and what we were doing with the readiness certificate. And from our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th, so we have about 347 people have taken that test. And then it breaks down, they can achieve anywhere from a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum level on that test. And currently we have no platinum level certificate recipients. About 53% of them are silver, 36% gold. Really, what does that mean? The state, and correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the education piece, they've evaluated that gold level as a high school education in math. So, but the hard part about the translation of that certificate is that if somebody achieves 2/3 of the test could be at a platinum level, and if they receive 1/3 of the test at a bronze level, they'll receive a bronze level certificate. So I think that there's some imperfections in terms of the data and what's happening with that, and we're certainly working on that to be able to, we have to identify what our community looks like in terms of the skills that they do have now to identify what those gaps are.
So it's an effort to try and document where are people and their skills, how long it's been since they graduated high school, college. Talk about, I saw you nodding your head about the skills gap. Speak to us, tell us who you are and what you're needing and seeing in terms of your workforce needs. You're here, I listed you as a STEM and high-tech employer.
Right.
What you might tell people what STEM is, too.
Science, technology, engineering, math. It's actually in the material that we were given, and I think the president mentioned it in the last couple of State of the Union addresses. I'm the president of Links Technologies. We're a tech company. We basically design electronics, then we build them and sell them. And give you an idea of what we do is, for instance, that wireless mic very well might have a transceiver in it. That's something we design. My background is that I moved here from the East Coast. I ran companies and divisions in Connecticut, New York, and Pennsylvania. And when we came here, we bought Links Technologies, and the idea was to grow it. Our goal is 5 times what its current size is. And we knew full well that one of the key limiting factors is engineers and technical positions, including even people to solder in manufacturing, to grow. And that was we literally listed it in our investment decision as a investment risk, the location of the company in Southern Oregon. And then when we came on board, how do you grow? You hire more engineers, they design more stuff, you sell it. We put out positions for it. It became apparent it's quite difficult to hire very specific engineering talent because it doesn't necessarily exist. There isn't a large enough base. There's other factors too, to give you an idea. We talked about education. Here are those percentages. The goal is 40% that have bachelor's degrees, and the country's currently at 24. Josephine County, if I have remember the number correct, is at 14%. So way below all those other things. Over time, we basically realized that what we thought was a negative ended up being a huge opportunity that we could exploit, and it was specifically this. Within that group of people, there is a tremendous amount of untapped potential among people who haven't gotten the experience or necessarily been able to go down that educational track to get the experience in these different things. And in the end, the key things are you smart, are you motivated, and are you passionate about what you're doing? We changed our entire HR strategy to exploit, in essence, because we're business people, you exploit something, you make money, this weakness by not trying to hire experienced people, to try to hire extremely talented people who we would then train and take advantage of. Another benefit of our region is RCC. We literally send people there and we take people from there as much as we can because of that. But this is all because of a weakness in our structure and in the system. You know, every time I post a job of a senior position, we have a division in Colorado, I always posted the senior positions in Colorado and here. So there are times where there's a senior engineering position that's being taken in Colorado, or a senior financial position that would have gotten here if we had the wide enough talent pool or experience base.
So you have a very vested interest, literally,
in this pipeline flowing well to you, engineers, as well as the talent.
Absolutely.
So let's open it up to everybody because we have a short amount of time. The exercise here, this is tough stuff. Because we're talking about a lot of institutional systems connecting up to a business strategy. What do people see in terms of how do we link this up? How do we get Toga, the skilled engineers, as other welders and solders? Some of it's happening already through RCC, but you're looking for more. We went over to OIT together. We talked about how do we connect with SOU's computer science department. You're part of the Roman Nexus e-commerce group.
Hey Jim, your microphone's out.
Can you hear me? It's out?
Turn it off. Yeah, the button.
Sorry. I think the battery's off.
It's not the computer.
Go ahead.
Let me share you an anecdote. Maybe sometimes it gives more evidence of how important these technical talent is to us. We hired probably the best engineer out of OIT's program, and it happened to be from Josephine County last year. And when we went to their career fair, we came across a kid who was valedictorian of Hidden Valley, I believe it was, at 4.0, through the roof, and passionate about exactly what we do. He's a freshman. I interviewed him 2 weeks ago, we gave him an offer, and it's basically like college football coaches recruiting the best athlete, because that kid is going to develop something that's going to create like 10 or 15 jobs. Just that incredible talent. If we don't get him, he's going to end up in Portland or San Francisco.
And it's also about the rest of the farm leagues and the youth soccer teams, all the way down to that education elementary level. And what I see happening is with this challenge with the funding and the limitations of that, this is the whole, when you look at that Oregon Business Plan website, which I really enjoy, I was telling Duncan and Jay, I think there's some really good stuff on that. The word it uses is about education system transformation. We talk about workforce system transformation. That means something's got to change in how we do business, how we're structured, how we're funded, how we operationalize. Scott, you and I have been participating. Todd's been in that. Debbie McClellan from RCC has been involved in the Youth Success Initiative. Toga and Nikki haven't even heard much about that. We're just going to talk about it at Monday's workforce board meeting. How do you see this connection happening where we can get kids who are at risk, dropping out, etc., to become the future engineers for Toga? There's a huge gap between what's really happening on the ground at the school level and what's happening at this level for Toga.
One of the changes in how we do business that has to happen is that we have to all become aligned with each other, reduce duplication, and be as efficient as we can as a larger community system. And that's one of the things that excites me about the Youth Success Initiative. And it's something we haven't really spoken about, but we have education, the Commission on Children and Families, the Job Council, and a number of other parties that now been meeting together for about 9 months. Initially, a lot of our discussion had to do with understanding each other's terminology, understanding each other's goals and objectives. The idea is that eventually we're going to come up with some kind of a regional student achievement compact that ties smoothly into the workforce. We need to all work together and understand each other. So we've been meeting and having these discussions, coming to agreement, drawing lots of charts on the wall, getting philosophical agreement.
Put some of those charts up there. Just for the heck of it.
So we're really talking about creating a 0 through 20 pipeline. Prenatal, early childhood, we have early childhood partners here at the table. The learning starts there.
So we've essentially developed what we call a cradle to career buck stops here group. It oversees really 3 groups. One is early learning, birth through age 5 to 6, and then a K-12 group, and then a group that looks at school to work, school to higher education transitions. And those 3 groups are meeting, and then this oversight group is hearing the communication from them so that we can all get our systems aligned. And we're now at the stage, we've started to talk about this phrase, talk cooks no rice. We can't just talk about it. We've got to start with some very strategic actions.
So let's talk a little bit about that first bucket of the dual credit. There's a goal, Kurt, I know you and Debbie have been working on with Scott, I'm sure all the school districts as well. Just speak real quickly about what that dual enrollment piece is, what we're trying to move the needle on there.
First piece of rice that we're cooking.
First piece of rice, small piece. First piece of rice that we're looking at is you lose students in transitions. You don't lose students, you don't tend to lose them when they're with you. You lose them when they go from you to somebody else. So taking out the transition is important, that seamless look. We're doing that really 2 ways. Students in high school can take classes in the high school by high school teachers that count in the college. That's college now or 2+2. The other way we do it is simply the reverse. We put a college course with a college instructor in the high school. So students are getting a flavor of a college curriculum, the college expectations, and the content then. What that does is eliminate a transition. It takes out a seam or a bump in the road. So a student already has 9 or 10 or 12 credits. When they leave high school, suddenly the continuation is a continuation. It's not a stop and a start.
And hopefully more of those would go into traded sector, manufacturing, or e-commerce jobs that, like electronics at RCC over to all IT or computer science, right into those kinds of positions.
Right, and then we need to look at the flip side, which is then how do we have students transition from our world of education into the world of employment without that same stop-out point? Because it's not a pipeline where you get on I-5 and go from Medford to Portland. You may go to Bend and still get to Portland. You may go to Coos Bay. You may go to Medford. Oh, now I know where I'm going. Now I'm going to Portland. And we have to allow a system that works where students can come in and come back out without losing traction, because that is what they do.
So I'm going to wrap this up. I think we just have a couple minutes left. One of the messages we talked about, I know I've talked with a number of you about this, that we wanted to give this group, particularly to the folks from Oregon Business Plan who will come down to this, as well as I think Representative Richardson, I think Representative Buckley is due here soon. He told me to try and get here, coming down from Salem, and to our other legislative leaders and community leaders, is that we are working on this. We are working the problem. We are taking on this transformational effort, both from the education side, as well as the workforce alignment, workforce readiness side. And it's hard work, but there's a lot, we're moving forward. We actually, Scott, you participate in some of these statewide groups with Rudy Cruz and others. Tell us a little bit your sense of where we're at and what our opportunity is here.
Well, I really hear again and again the focus on, and I've said it before, a regional student achievement compact where higher education, early learning, K-12, and the workforce are all working together in alignment. And as I look at what we're doing, especially with the Youth Success Initiative, it seems to me we're right on the cutting edge of that, and we're well positioned to embrace the kinds of things that are coming down the road.
Any final comments before we close it off? Once going twice. I think we'll catch up questions later, because we're getting yanked off the stage, right? Okay.